Mosina, Chapter 2. You feel a hoof on your shoulder, shaking you awake in time to hear the train screeching to a halt.
Wake up, Anon, we are here.
Mosina says as she continues to try and wake you up.
I'm awake.
You groan, quickly standing up.
Whoa, head rush.
You say, feeling slightly dizzy. Mosina laughs at you a bit.
Well, don't overexert yourself on my count, but we have to get off the train. Hugo is waiting for us on the platform.
She says, putting on a woolly-looking cloak.
Great. Can we leave him there and just take the train to the next stop?
You groan. Mosina frowns at you.
Of course not. That would be require another ticket.
She winked before trotting through the door. The two of you step out onto the platform, and immediately you notice how much colder it is.
Why didn't anyone tell me it was gonna be this cold up here?
You say, shivering even with your jacket on.
I figured you knew.
Mosina shrugged, looking at her map.
According to my map, the red square isn't far, a couple of blocks at most, over on Obo Street. Hopefully they have got some heating there.
You mutter. Hugo raises an eyebrow at you. You stick your tongue out at him. As the three of you head to the exit, you see two large stallions standing at the gate. They wear thick, dark military-looking coats and furry hats adorned with red star pins. As you approach, one of them raises a hoof. Papers, please, he says. He reeks of hard cider.
Papers?
Mosina asks, puzzled. Papers, the guard repeats. Nobody steps in a Stalingrad without their identification. Uh-oh.
Well,
Mosina starts.
we have our ticket stubs. I don't know what sort of identification you're looking for.
If you do not have proper identification, you must pay an entry fee, the guard says, eyeing her.
And how much would that be?
Mosina questions. 50 bits, the other guard answers. Yes, 50 bits, the first one affirms. Hugo scowls as Mosina gasps in shock.
50 bits? That's ridiculous!
She cries.
This is a goddamn shakedown is what it is.
You say.
Guards!
You hear a voice call out. You look over and see a unicorn coming out of an office dressed in an extravagant uniform. Her bright blue eyes and wide coat stood in stark contrast to the dark fabric of her uniform. The guards quickly salute. Clearly, she was an officer of some sort.
What seems to be the problem here?
She says as she approaches the scene.
These two are telling us to pay an entry fee to the city. There's never been any sort of fee for that in decades.
Hugo spoke up. The officer looks at the guards, who are now looking slightly worried.
Both of you, into my office, now.
She commands, to which they promptly obey. She sighs and turns to your group.
I apologize for my guards. They've been pulling this entry fee nonsense for weeks now, ever since the new premier took power over the city Duma.
She explained.
She let the local guard get away with just about everything.
Premier? Duma? What was she talking about?
Well, thank you for helping us.
Mosina said.
I was worried we were going to be forced to leave before we could do our research.
The officer raised an eyebrow.
Researchers? Funny. We don't get many visitors in general here, much less researchers, especially not of your kind,
She said, studying Mosina's face.
I'm Colonel Snowside, by the way, and let me be the first to welcome to our fair city.
It's good to meet you. I'm Mosina, and this is Anon and Hugo.
Mosina said. Snowsight nodded at you and Hugo.
It is good to meet all of you. Is there anything that I can help you with at the present time?
She asked.
We are looking for the red square. It is not far, right?
Mosina asked.
Not at all. Simply exit the train station and make a right. Head that way for 3 blocks and it will be the last building on the corner.
Snowsight answered.
Do they have heating?
You asked, eliciting an elbow from Hugo.
What? It's really freaking cold here.
You shrug. The colonel looks at you, as if just now noticing you for the first time.
They always have a fire burning there, but one would think someone coming to Stalingrad would have known better than to wear such inadequate clothing.
She said, smirking.
I'm a tough guy. I can handle it.
You say, trying to hide your chattering teeth. Hugo simply scoffs.
Well, thank you again, but we really ought to get going.
Mosina said, sensing the tension between you and Hugo growing the longer all you stayed chill.
It is my pleasure. Now I'm going to go deal with those two. If any other members of the Red Watch give you trouble, just tell them your friend Colonel Snowsight will have them thrown in the gulag.
She wasn't playing around. You could get used to that sort of power. With that, the three of you step out into the streets of Stalingrad. It was early evening, but torchlight still illuminated the city streets. Snow was continuing to fall, and the ground was blanketed in the powder. Or it would be if the bitter wind was not blowing it across the streets.
You know, it isn't so bad.
You managed to get out between teeth chatters.
By the end of this, I'm gonna have the strangest job in all of Equestria.
Mosina laughs.
Don't worry, Unknown. We shall find you some warmer clothes soon.
She says reassuringly, "Finding human clothes in this place?" Something told you that was some very optimistic thinking. Eventually, you could see a large sign atop one of the many almost identically depressed-looking buildings. It was a large red square with a very fitting description of just that written out inside it.
Here we are,
Mosina cheered.
the Red Square. I wonder why they call it that.
You say sarcastically.
Come on, I'm freezing to death out here.
Opening the door, you're greeted with a very reassuring sight. Inside are many ponies, drinking, singing, fighting, and generally being merry. And all there was, as promised, a roaring fire in the large ornate fireplace. In all honesty, it looked more like a bar than an inn.
Finally.
You say, rushing over to the fire and holding out your hands to absorb the warmth. Mosina is simply looking around, already scribbling notes down as she observes the scene around her.
Alright, Anon, we are supposed to meet with the owner here. His name is Oblast. It seems legit. Who better to learn everything about the city from than a bar owner?
You say, relishing in the heat.
Well, he does talk to all and know just about everyone in the city. You're bound to hear a lot of stories with a job like that.
Mosina says, undeterred. She attempts to get the attention of several patrons, none of which respond with much more than a grunt, or ignore her completely.
Excuse me, sir? Do you know where I can find Mr. Oblast?
She asks one particularly imposing-looking stallion. He looks at her and scowls.
What do you wanna know about sucker?
He asks, "Did he just say what you think he said?" Mosina frowns, but continues.
My friends and I are here to see him, and we would really appreciate if we... Not gonna happen. We don't take kindly to your type around here, so I suggest you beat it.
He cut her off as he turned back to his drink. Mosina at this point was looking distraught, but asked once more.
That really isn't necessary, sir. All I need to know is where I can find... The answer is no!
The stallion said, knocking over his chair as he stood up and began approaching her, causing her to fall back. You stood up and took a step toward him.
I'm not going to tell a filthy, blood-sucking piece of...
He continued as he approached her menacingly. In a flash, Hugo subdued the stallion, stopping his advance with a chokehold.
You might want to reconsider that.
He said to the stallion as he struggled to free himself. After a few moments, he began to relent.
In the back room.
He gasped.
Thank you.
Hugo said, releasing him as he dropped to the floor, gasping for breath. He looked over to you and Mosina and ran a claw over his head.
Shall we?
He asked. In the far back corner of the room was the door labeled VIP.
I guess we owe VIP if we were told to come meet this guy, huh?
You ask, looking at Mosina.
I would think so. Come on, let's check it out.
She cracks the door open and you all take a look inside. Inside is a rather large room with very little lighting. There are significantly fewer patrons inside than outside, which wasn't too surprising. It was the VIP section after all. There is a small stage upon which most of the light is directed. On the stage is a slightly stout-looking unicorn. It looked like he was addressing the audience.
Then since Premier Raven has taken power, we have seen not but frequent abuse by the Red Watch, our properties seized or vandalized, and our very livelihoods threatened in the name of her social progress.
The three of you snuck through the door and sat down quickly in the back corner table.
Stalingrad is a proud city with proud citizens. They have never been under the rule of tyrant, but my friends, that may soon change if we do not act to unseat the Premier soon.
The unicorn continued. Muffled words of agreement ran throughout the room and the audience.
What the hell is he talking about?
You whisper to Mosina, who simply shrugs.
Luckily,
The orator continues.
my contacts tell me that help will soon arrive, and we can put Operation Barbarossa into effect. Until then, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
The unicorn steps off backstage, and the patrons begin to file out back into the main room of the inn. The three of you wait until the coast is clear, and then make your way to the stage.
That's got to be Mr. Oberst.
Mosina said.
We need to go find him.
She climbs the side steps of the stage and peeks behind the curtain before waving you over. You and Hugo take your positions behind her as she pulls back the curtain. It's dark, but there is a single door with light pouring throughout the cracks.
That must be his dressing room. Come on.
Mosina says as she trots forward.
Mosina, wait!
You whisper. She was always rushing headlong into things. Sneaking up on this guy probably wasn't the best idea, and you knew it. Regardless, she does not stop, and you're forced to follow suit. The three of you sit outside the door and can hear the unicorn humming a tune to himself inside. Lifting a hoof, Mosina knocks on the door 3 times. Suddenly, the humming stops. The entire room is silent. Mosina knocks again.
Who is there?
The unicorn calls from the inside. The three of you look at each other.
Are you Mr. Oberst?
Mosina asks.
You have got nothing on me. I'm innocent until proven guilty, so you can see yourself to the exit. Well, this is certainly turning out to be a friendly town.
You say.
Who was that?
Mosina shushes you and turns back to the door.
That's my friend Anon, and I'm Mosina. We are here from Canterot, and the princesses referred us to you.
Hoofbeats rapidly approached the door, and it flung open. The unicorn stallion stood there, an excited look on his face.
You have finally arrived. I was beginning to wonder if maybe the watch has hauled you off to the gulag. The watch has given us fewer problems than your own patrons.
Hugo scoffed. Mr. Oblast looked at the griffin suspiciously.
Given that attitude, I'm not surprised.
He motioned for you all to come inside.
Please sit. Would any of you care for a drink?
You all shake your heads.
Suit yourselves.
Mr. Oblast said, mixing himself a drink from the minibar.
Mr. Oberst, I was hoping we could talk about our research there instead.
Mosina began before the unicorn put up a hoof, downing his drink.
Yes, your research. I am fully aware of that.
He said.
I can tell you everything there is to know about this city.
Mosina gave a big smile.
Anon, start taking notice.
She said, taking out a quill and scroll from her pack. Mr. Oblast shook his hoof again.
Oh, hold on. I can help you with your research, but there's something that I require from you first. Hey, that's not what the princesses told us. They said you would give us all the information we need.
You say. Mr. Oblast looks at you.
And that I will, as soon as you help me put this city's current situation to rest. What sort of situation?
Hugo asked, beginning to sound irritated.
The premier of the city Duma, Raven, have been taking steps that will ultimately end with the succession of the city of Stalingrad from the rest of Equestria.
Oh boy, here we go.
It is in the best interests of the citizens of Stalingrad that this does not happen, as the premier would then have free reign to rule us all. That sounds awful and but we are not exactly the revolutionary type, so if you would be so kind as to just tell us what we need to know, that we shall be on our way.
You say, definitely feeling like this was getting out of hand.
If you do not help us, then you will receive no help from me.
Oblast angrily replied.
That's fine, we will just do our own research, won't we, Mosina?
She nods her head meekly, looking more confused by the minute.
Ha! Good luck, you are outsiders in this place. I would wager the watch will have you looked up in the church or another within the week. Colonel Snowsight said she could help us if they gave us any trouble.
Mosina said.
The colonel is a good friend of ours, but there is only so much she can do. I can give you all the information you could ever want and more about the city. All I ask in return is a little bit of help. You are the only outsiders in the city at the moment. No one will suspect that you know or care about our plight. Please, help us.
Mr. Oblast pleaded. You, Mosina, and Hugo all exchanged troubled looks. Mosina, with a sudden flash of determination, speaks up.
Yes, we will help you, Mr. Obes. If what you are saying is true, we can't just leave you out to suffer.
With a hearty laugh, he grabs up Mosina in a great big bear hug.
I knew that we would not be let down. Thank you, thank you, thank you. No problem.
Mosina said, being crushed in his arms. Releasing her, Mr. Oblast beams with newfound optimism.
You all can take the suite upstairs. It's large enough for the three of you to be comfortable. Unfortunately, there are only 2 bedrooms, so you will have to work that out between yourselves.
He chuckled. Fan-fucking-tastic.
Follow me tonight with Percy and be merry. Tomorrow we get to work.
After a long night spent by the fire and eventually on the floor of your suite, you felt rejuvenated. You opened your eyes and sprung up from your makeshift bed. Too fast, the hardwood floor did a number on you, it seems. Aching a bit, you make your way over to the large window, looking out into the city. The snow had subsided, leaving a white, glistening blanket on the ground. The citizens of Stalingrad were going about their business bright and early. A chill ran up your spine as a cold draft passed into the room. You really ought to have brought a heavier coat. A funky smell proceeds to make its way up to your nose. You lift your arm, investigating the source, and your nostrils are assaulted immediately. You hadn't washed since you left Canterlot. Maybe now was the time. Not wanting to disturb your companions, you tiptoe over to the bathroom. Walking by one of the rooms with 2 beds, you poke your head into an open door. In the bed, or rather, on the bed, Mosina lay haphazardly, one leg hanging over the side. Her sheets were thrown about everywhere as well. You laughed to yourself at the scene, as you yourself often ended up in a very similar pose in the mornings. You turn to the other door and see that it's closed up tight. Hugo was a bit more private with the room that you so graciously allowed him to take, totally of your own free will. Making your way to the bathroom, you turn on the shower and revel in the warm water. It was heavenly, but a bit uncomfortable as the controls in the tub itself were designed for ponies, not people. Still, you managed. After about half an hour had passed in the sauna, you decided you had had enough. You pull back the curtain and are instantly face to face with a pair of upside-down, bespectacled eyes.
What the fuck?
You cry as you jump backwards, slipping and falling as you do. Mosina simply laughs as you struggle to back up to your feet.
What the hell are you doing? I woke up and heard the shower running. I had to borrow the towel last night, so I brought it back to you.
You simply stood there, covering yourself and trying to make sense of what she just said.
Thanks.
You say, giving up trying to understand the situation and taking the towel from her hoof.
Could I get a little bit of privacy here?
Mosina giggles and drops down to the floor.
Sure thing, Canon. I just couldn't resist.
Minutes later, you emerge from the bathroom clean as a whistle. Mosina was back in her room, adjusting her cloak in the mirror. She catches you standing in her doorway in the reflection.
I hope you didn't hurt yourself too bad. We have got a lot of work to do today. I think I will manage. You have already talked to Obost?
Mosina nodded.
He came up while you were in the shower. He wants us to take a letter to Colonel Snow's site in the city park. Sounds easy enough. Is he coming with us? No, he can't be seen talking to her or it will interfere with their plans. It's okay. It's just a delivery. Nothing we can't handle.
She said, winking at you in the other mirror. You turn and hear snoring coming from the other room.
I take it the catbird hasn't woken up yet? Nope. I think we can let him sleep this once off. He had quite a night last night, didn't he? Fine by me. The less time we spent around him, the better.
Mosina frowns at you, finally turning to look at you.
He's here to help us, Elon. You two should try to get along better.
She said, trotting past you and toward the door.
That's easy for you to say. You're not the one talking his shit every time he opens his beak.
The two of you step out into the snow-covered streets. Mosina leads the way as the two of you head toward the city park. You pass by ponies going about their daily business, going to work, coming back from night shift work. In fact, it was hard to see someone not doing some sort of work. Stallion Gradians were very industrious ponies, apparently. As the two of you make your way out of the new city, you begin to see a break in the repetitive, dull sameness. You stare in awe at the majesty of old Stalingrad. The domed buildings, the colors, the intricate architecture that made the whole area look like a piece of art.
Isn't it beautiful, Anon?
Mosina asked, looking around in wonder. You nod, already making notes of some of the more impressive examples. Despite the wintry wonderland around you, something was still burning at the back of your mind. You looked at Mosina, the smile on her face, the glint in her eyes. She exuded an aura of innocence. So what had that stallion back at the inn meant when he called her a bloodsucker? You wanted to ask, but at the same time, you didn't want to risk offending your friend. No, you had to say something. You had to know.
Hey, Mosina. Yes, Anon?
She smiled at you. That damn smile.
I've kinda been meaning to ask you something.
The smile didn't disappear. She just raised an eyebrow and looked at you curiously.
Huh? And what would that be?
It was now or never.
What did that guy at the inn mean last night when he called you, you know?
The smile faded, and your stomach began tying itself in a knot. Maybe you'd made a mistake. She could see the discomfort on your face.
Don't worry, Anon, it's okay. You would have to find out sooner or later.
She said reassuringly.
I don't like to talk about it much, it's all. I'm not proud of it. What is it?
She looked you in the eye, with a look of deep shame.
Bad ponies drink blood, Anon. We have to.
Your stomach is almost tying itself in half.
We don't need to do it all the time, and we can just sustain ourselves on fruit, vegetables, whatever, for a long time. But we eventually need to feed, or it starts to mess with our heads.
Oh, that's reassuring. So she's only a part-time bloodsucker,
Ah, okay.
you mutter. Mosina looks at you, obviously worried.
I know I should have told you, but I didn't think it was going to be an issue. Is it?
You look at her. She looks at you. You look at her. She looks at you. You look at the ground for a few seconds, then back to her. She's still looking at you, tears in the corners of her eyes. You know, what difference did it make? You knew this pony well enough that you would be willing to go on a cross-country trip with her. You trusted her to stay in your home back in Ponyville. So what if she had to drink a little blood every now and then? With everything that you had seen, was it really that strange? This was your friend, and this didn't change that. You knelt down and put your arms around her, to which she promptly returned the embrace.
No, it's not an issue.
You say, squeezing her tightly. You can hear her sniffle a little bit in your shoulder, but as she pulls away, there's a smile back on her face.
Thank you, Anon. You don't know how much that means to me.
She said, taking off her glasses and wiping away the tears.
Hey, it's nothing.
You ruffle her mane a bit and stand back up.
Now come on, we got the Colonel to meet.
Hold it right there.
You hear behind you, causing you to stop dead in your tracks. You turn slowly. Standing behind you is Colonel Snowsight, and she's laughing hysterically.
You two, you should have seen the looks on your faces.
You and Mosina share a sigh of relief.
What are you doing here, Colonel?
Mosina asked.
I thought we were supposed to meet you at the city park.
Snowsight shook her head.
Place is crawling with Red Watch. I figured it would be better just to meet you halfway.
Fine by us. Anon, give her the letter.
You reach into your back pocket and pull out the envelope, handing it to Snowsight. She stuffs it into her bag immediately.
I'll read it when we're not so exposed. But I want you two to see something. Follow me.
The two of you follow Snowsight as she continues on the path toward the park. She presses onward in silence as you two exchange confused looks. As you approach the park, you can see that there is indeed a large concentration of guards there. As you approach the gate, the guards salute. "Good morning, Colonel," one of them says. "Will you be joining us for the premier siege?"
Indeed I am, Private. My guest here will be joining us as well.
The guards nod and allow you passage. As you walk past them, you swear you can hear them whispering. You can see a small crowd gathering around a stage, flanked by members of the Red Watch.
The Premier gives a monthly address here.
Snowsight tells you.
It's propaganda, if nothing else. She likes to speak of all the great things Stalingrad is accomplishing. And now, under her and the Bolshevik Party's leadership, it will grow and prosper.
Well, will it?
You ask.
Of course not. They are driving the hand-working ponies of Stalingrad into poverty and slavery. It's a slow process, but it is happening.
Snowsight sighs.
I do not expect you to understand. Stalingrad and its people are proud. We believe in just reward for hard work, and the Premier is trying to take all we have earned away from us in some social experiment. It isn't right.
Reminds me some of guys we had back home.
You laugh to yourself.
Then maybe you understand why we're not happy with the present situation.
You stand at the back of the crowd and wait, the wind rustling the leaves of the park trees and the whispers of the crowd, the only sounds. Minutes later, a carriage pulls up, drawn by two guards in rather extravagant uniforms compared to their comrades. The guards salute as a lavishly dressed Pegasus steps out from the carriage. Her long mane was tied up in a rather conservative knot, and her highly decorated clothing showed either her political career starting coming off and a very impressive military career, or someone had been very generous in their rewards. The crowd begins to cheer as she takes her place at the podium on the stage. She raises a hoof and they fall silent.
Greetings, citizens of Stalingrad.
Snowsight nudges you.
That's the Premier, in case you're wondering.
Thanks, I will have to never figure that out.
Mosina elbows you.
What?
You whisper.
I do have two brain cells to rub together, you know?
They both shush you. Grudgingly, you give in and be silent.
As always, it warms my heart to see so many of my fair citizens turning out for my monthly address.
The Pegasus continues.
As always, I would like to thank each and every one of you for your continued support in the efforts of the party as we march towards a brighter future.
This was starting to sound a lot like every other politician you'd ever heard,
A future of progress.
promising this and that. But did they ever follow through? No.
A future of happiness.
Happiness for you, maybe.
A future of independence.
The crowd cheered, and the Pegasus simply looked out over them, a look of triumph on her face. Her expression changed to one of utmost seriousness moments later.
Unfortunately, there are those who seek to halt the advance of progress, to spread inequality for their own gain, and prostrate themselves to a monarchy that does not respect us.
Boos rang out from the crowd. Mosina looked to you with a troubled glance. You scratch her behind the ear reassuringly.
These traitors will not be suffered to derail our glorious crusade, for our cause is just and our will of iron.
The crowd was going insane at this moment, but the Pegasus did not stop.
We will root them out one by one if we must, and we will make them see the error of the ways, and make them serve as examples for those who would keep us in the shackles of tyranny forever. So keep a vigilant eye out, my fellow citizens. Do your duty for your friends, for your family, for Stalingrad.
And with that, she stepped off of the podium and made her way back to the carriage, to the crowd's cheers.
Let's go.
Snowside said, nudging you. The three of you made your way out of the park and back into the street.
You can see what we're dealing with here. Premier Raven has some of the population behind her, a minority but fanatical.
So, what's your plan?
Mosina asked.
We need to take her support away from her, expose her corruption, and the corruption of the entire regime.
Snowside explained.
But we cannot act openly, not with the Red Watch out and about. That is why we need you to help us. They will never suspect outsiders to care about the problems of the city.
We understand and we are happy to help.
Mosina said, smiling at the colonel.
You are true friends of the people. The princess has the right to send you to help us. Now go. I'm sure Mr. Oblast has more work to be done.
With a nod, you make your separate ways from the colonel and start heading back toward the Red Square. On the way, Mosina comments on this and that, rapping off her usual 1,000,000 words a minute, much to your writing hand's dismay as you try to keep up with your notes. Despite the fact that you are now technically revolutionaries, or counter-revolutionaries rather, you were already enjoying this trip. The bitter cold of the previous night was almost like a distant memory now as the sun shined brightly in the sky on you and your friend. After a long walk and several pages of notes, you finally make your way back to the inn. Once inside, you see Hugo and Mr. Oblast at the bar talking over a drink. They notice you and beckon you over. You each take a seat, and Mr. Oblast leans over the counter.
Meet me in the suit in 5 minutes.
That can't be good. You and Mosina make your way up to your room, Hugo following close behind. Closing the door behind you, Hugo speaks up.
Did you two have fun on your little date? It wasn't a date, it was a delivery.
You say.
Any reason why you decided to leave me here? We didn't want to wake you. Besides, it's not like we are doing something dangerous.
Mosina chimed in. Hugo looks to her.
Everything about the situation is dangerous, Mosina.
He said.
We are acting in opposition to the leaders of the city. This is espionage, subterfuge, and they will come after you for if we are discovered. If it's not like we're doing anything illegal.
Mosina mumbled.
It doesn't have to be. I have seen others in your position sent to the gallows for much less.
Hugo shook his head.
Do not leave without me again. I'm here to protect you by the request of your uncle, my friend, and I will not let him down. Fine, fine, relax, nothing even happened.
You sigh as you take a seat at the table.
This time nothing happened, but next time it might, and I will be there to make sure Mosina is not harmed. Who is to say I couldn't take care of things?
Hugo scoffed.
You? I would trust hatchlings to provide more adequate defense than you. Alright, you listen right the fuck here.
You say before you are cut off by the opening of the door. Mr. Oblast steps in, closing and locking the door behind him.
We have a bit of a problem. And what would that be?
You ask.
Two watchmen come by while you two were out. They were asking a lot of questions. What sort of questions?
Mosina asked.
They were asking about any suspicious visitors coming through here, disapproval of the premiere of their party. I think they may suspect something. Well, that was certainly quick.
Hugo groaned.
Regardless, they can't prove any connection between us and the premier position, so I think it's just posturing. Did you deliver the letter? Yes, we did. Snowsight has it, and it's probably looting its own as we speak.
Mosina replied.
Well, that's at least one bit of good news. For now, we'll wait for the colonel reply before we go forward. But as I promised, I will be happy to give you some information about Stalingrad in exchange for your service. That's be very much appreciated, Mr. Lopez. Anon, get the notes ready.
You spend the better part of the next 2 hours listening as Mr. Oblast regales your troop with tales of Stalingrad's history and culture. You learn that Stalingrad had developed independently of the Kingdom of Equestria, joining during a time of great crisis. Some of the populace resented that their leaders had surrendered their total independence in merging with a larger nation, but for the majority it was a welcome decision and brought prosperity to the city. While all benefited from the Union, elements remain to this day that still wish to regain their total independence, namely the Bolsheviks. And that brings you to the present situation, with the city government planning and moving toward a goal that would surely isolate and cut off the city from the arrangement that had benefited its citizens so much. The stories went on for longer than you thought possible. Eventually, Mr. Oblast had begun to return to the lobby. The nighttime rush was beginning. Mosina seemed very much satisfied, and she thanked him and put away her writing materials.
This is exactly what we need, Anon. These schools never teach this sort of stuff.
She said, beaming at you.
Hopefully, we will get a lot more before we're done here. This is absolute gold. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
You say, rubbing your aching writing hand. Mosina looks at your hand and gives you a sympathetic smile.
I hope I'm not forcing my faithful assistant too hard.
She chuckled.
I think I may be coming down with a little corporate tunnel, but it's for a good cause, so I will manage. Let me see your hand.
Hugo said.
What for? Just let me see it.
Reluctantly, you stretch out your arm for the griffin to examine it. He takes your arm and looks it over, and using his claws, he puts pressure on 2 spots.
Wow, what are you doing?
You say, taken by surprise.
Stop moving so much, give me a minute.
After a few moments and pressure points, he releases your arm. Much to your surprise, your pain has all but completely subsided.
How did you... You learn certain things when you're treating the wounded in the field hospital. Your extremities also resemble those of minotaurs, for some reason. So it was an educated guess that would work. Well, thanks, I guess.
You say, confused by the sudden act of kindness.
Can't have you laying around being less useful than you are now.
Well, so much for what could have been a bonding moment.
Yeah, well, I think I'm gonna hit the hay. I get the bed tonight. I don't think so. Not after this morning. Oh, come on. It's fine, Anon. We can share if you want.
Mosina laughed, patting you on the back. Oh my, .jpg.
You sure about that? I don't see why not, unless you think there's a problem. You're not going to try and sneak out any of my blood, are you?
You joke. You almost immediately regretted it, thinking that she might take offense, but to your relief, she gives you a sly look.
I don't know. You way in there, all defenseless and all might be a little too tempting.
Hugo groans in frustration.
I think that's where I take my leave. I'm going downstairs for a drink. See you bright and early, Hugo.
Mosina laughed as he waved over his shoulder, exiting the room.
Well, I'm about to pass out, so I'm going to lay down.
You yawn, moving to the bedroom.
I will be there in a few. I need to ask Mr. Over something real quick.
You throw yourself on the bed, surprised by its stiffness. Sure as hell beats the floor, though. You toss and turn for a few minutes before finding an acceptable position. You laugh to yourself a bit as the thought of Silvertongue's reaction if he knew that you were sharing a bed with Mosina. If it rustled his jimmies, you were certainly all the more for it. As the moments passed, you began to wonder when she was coming back anyway. Moments turned into minutes, and soon your weariness took over you. You don't know how long you were asleep, but when you woke, it was still dark. You try to move a little, but feel another presence in the bed in your path. As your eyes adjust to the darkness, you can make out Mosina's figure, huddled up next to you. She was sound asleep, her ear twitching a bit every other moment. You barely contain the urge to at the sight of it. Suddenly, you instinctually put up your hand to feel your neck. No bites. It looks like she kept to her word, to refrain from feeding on your defenseless self. You feel a pang of guilt immediately, though. You had also promised her that it wouldn't be an issue, that you trusted her as a friend. A cold draft passes through the room, and you notice her shiver a bit, her sleep. In your half-conscious delirium, put your arm around her and pull her closer, and soon the shivering ceases. As you drift back to sleep, you think back to your house in Ponyville. You think about your old job, your old life, and you thank whatever powers that be that you traded all that for this uncomfortable bed in a freezing inn because you got to share it with this wonderful creature beside you. Several days pass. Each day you spend working with either Mr. Oblast or Colonel Snowsight. Each day you feel the hole you must be digging for yourself getting deeper and deeper, but you know that this is what you have to do for the princesses, for Stalingrad, for Mosina. The days are long, delivering messages mostly, inconspicuously watching and making notes of party officials. You begin to wonder how long your troop is going to be stuck here in this place or when you'll continue your journey. Finally, on the 6th day, good news.
We've located all of the Duma's financial records for the past year.
Colonel Snowsight tells you, huddled into an alleyway is covered from not only the wind, but the watchful eyes of the other guards.
That's good?
Mosina says, trying to sound more enthusiastic than confused by the news, cheesing hard.
And what can we do with that?
You ask.
With those records, we can show the citizens of Stalingrad that the Bolsheviks are squandering their money and assets to line their own pockets, not to create equality.
And that's going to get the premier voted out.
Oh, it will have far more dire consequences than that. Corruption is not taken lightly in this city.
Great. So where are they? Let's go get them.
Mosina said enthusiastically. Snowsight's face then turned grim.
The records are in the Duma vault, under constant surveillance by members of the Red Watch.
Well, that sort of makes things difficult, doesn't it?
We'll find a way around it, but this news is enough for now to start putting our plans in motion.
Snowsight said confidently.
That's all for now. Take this information back to Oblast. He'll be happy to hear the progress.
Right away. Take care, Colonel.
As you go your separate ways, Mosina looks over her shoulder to make sure that you're out of the Colonel's earshot.
We need to get those records, and soon.
You look at her, raising your eyebrow.
Isn't that already the plan? Yes, but I mean, we need to do this really soon. I think we need to just let the Colonel and Mr. Obus do their things here.
Mosina frowns a bit.
We can come up with something. I'm sure they don't mind suggestions, but they probably know better than we do, don't you think? Says you.
She says, looking at you with a sly smile. Back at the red square, the two of you relay the news to Mr. Oblast.
This is fantastic. Soon our mission will be complete and Stalingrad will be free of tyranny once more. That's great, Mr. Obus, but do you think there are any ways that we could get to the records sooner rather than later?
Mosina asks hopefully.
All in the due time. The Colonel knows best with these matters, and we should trust her judgment.
The same disappointed frown crosses her face again. But she relents.
Alright, Mr. Obus, was there anything else you needed us to do today? No. With news like this, it's time for celebration. Head on upstairs, and I will join you with drinks shortly. Thank you, sir.
You say, motioning to Mosina to follow you as you head to the stairs. Mosina paced back and forth in your room.
There has to be a way to speed this up. I don't understand why you're getting so antsy. I would think you would want to stay here for a bit.
You say, flipping through the newspaper.
You misunderstand. I love the city, but we need to do our part in all of this. I thought we were doing our part. We are messengers, errant runners. We need to do something real for the cause.
You can't help but admire her spirit. The lengths that she was willing to go to help others, an entire city even, was truly inspiring.
You shouldn't underestimate our work.
Hugo chimed in, reading his book.
I just wish we could do more in all. There has to be a way we can get to those records.
Hugo sighed and shook his head.
The Colonel and the House have both suggested that we wait and make sure this operation is carried out carefully. You will be wise to listen to them.
Mosina rolled her eyes, then looked at you.
Of course, Hugo. Whatever would we do without your guidance? Probably end up in a gulag on your first day to Stalingrad.
He responded flatly, closing his book and heading to his room.
It's getting late. You two should get some sleep. Good night, Hugo.
Mosina said, rolling her eyes and giving you a faint look of frustration. When his door finally closes, her eyes drift to your paper, and they go wide.
Anon, let me see that.
You flip over your paper to see what she's looking at.
Why? Just let me see, please.
She says, taking the paper from your hand. Her eyes scan the page and a devious smile crosses her face.
I think I may have just found our plan. Run me through this one more time so I can be sure just how fucked we are.
You say, fidgeting in your crudely fitted suit. Mosina seemed much more comfortable in her dress, tying her hair up in her professional knot.
I told you, Anon, the military parade today will have most of, if not all, the Red Watch distracted. We are going to go to the Duma building, posing as rich folk looking to invest in the city. Any members of the Premier Party will see this as an opportunity to score more cash and won't refuse if you ask for a tour. And you think that they will just take us right to the vault? Of course not, but a view of the inside of the Duma will be wonderful for our research, and when we find it, we will go from there.
We'll go from there. Oh, brother.
Glad to see we have this well thought out.
You say sarcastically.
Anon, it will work, just trust me. Does Hugo know about this? Of course not. There's no way he would let us do anything remotely dangerous.
For once, you felt like maybe the bird had the right idea.
Mosina, what are we going to do if we get caught?
Frustrated, Mosina finishes tying her mane and looks at you. Her expression turns from one of frustration to one of a cool, unnaturally relaxed look of understanding.
Anon, I know you're worried, but we can do this.
She says, putting a hoof on your hand.
I just need you to trust me, okay?
That look on her face. She was playing you hardcore. Resistance is futile.
Alright, you're in.
With a giddy squeal, Mosina hugs you.
I knew I could count on you, Anon. Now come on, the parade is about to start.
The ground trembled slightly underfoot as the collective of Staliningrad's forces marched through the city. In full battle dress, they were fearsome as they were numerous. The crowd stood looking in awe as they watched the parade march past them, amazed at the fluid and synchronized motions. Such discipline was their strength. As the crowd watched, you and Mosina were making your break for the city Duma.
The parade is supposed to last 2 hours. We need to get these records before it ends.
Mosina said.
Great, it's good to be reminded we are on a time limit.
Coming off of Commissar Street, you see the elegant building in which the city Duma presided.
It's beautiful.
Mosina gasped, taken aback by their architectural marvel. The great pillars, the domed roof, the murals of Stalingrad's historical moments of greatness. Stone statues of the city's heroes and leaders flanked the stairway leading to the entrance. It was truly a wondrous thing. Nudging her, Mosina snaps back to reality.
We are on a time limit, remember? Let's get inside.
The two of you make your way up to the deserted stairway, normally under heavy guard. Today, only the effigies of great heroes guarded this place. Mosina was gawking at them, amazed by their mere presence. As you approached the door, you could hear the parade off in the distance.
Do we just open it? Can Harto try? You gonna try? You try. It was your idea.
Mosina just raises an eyebrow at you.
Fine.
You relent. You don't know why you let her win these things. You turn the great door handle and open it ever so slightly, quickly retracting your hand. When no response comes, you poke your head inside and look around. The lobby appears to be deserted.
It's empty. Come on.
You sneak inside the door. The lobby is almost as impressive as the exterior of the building. Gold and red everywhere. Highly detailed carvings in marble along the walls depicting great battle scenes. There is a large desk in the middle of the room, not manned by anyone. Mosina rushes over to the desk and jumps behind it, much to your surprise.
Mosina, what are you doing?
You whisper.
Anything that will help us.
She whispers back. Rummaging through the drawers, she finally finds what she's looking for.
Aha, a tourist map.
Suddenly, you hear hoofsteps approaching from down one of the great halls to your sides.
Mosina, get out from behind there.
Hearing you, Mosina leaps over the desk and takes a place at your side, still holding the map in her mouth. You quickly grab it and stuff it in your pocket just as the clerk rounds the corner. She looks at you confused.
Can I help you?
The clerk asks.
Yes. Yes, you can, ma'am. My business partner and I were hoping to speak for someone who works here.
Mosina says as you stumble through your words.
I work here. What did you need?
The clerk wore an ugly brown uniform, very plain and not nearly as dashing as those of the guards. But you do notice a red armband indicating her membership of the party.
We were hoping to discuss the possibility of investing in the city's economy. We are very wealthy, you see, and we see a lot of potential in Stalingrad under the Bolsheviks party.
You want to give us money?
The clerk said, sounding a bit skeptical.
Indeed we do, but we thought maybe it would be wise to see just what we are dealing with beforehand. Would you mind showing us around?
I think I will better get my boss.
The clerk said, starting to turn away. She wasn't buying it.
There's no need for that.
You say, reaching into your back pocket. Pulling out a bag of bits, you place them on the desk in front of the clerk.
A quick tour, and you will be able to tell your boss all about the huge investment you just secured for the city. And you will get a little extra spending money to treat yourself to something nice.
Seeing the bag, the clerk's expression quickly warms up.
Right this way, sir, ma'am.
You give Mosina your best, that was close, look, and follow the clerk as she walks off down the great hall. She leads you through several rooms, the west wing, the east wing, the storage room. All in all, it was a pretty unimpressive tour, mostly the fault of your guide. Finally, after what seemed like forever, you pull out the map and look for anywhere the vault might be.
Excuse me, ma'am, since we are looking to invest financially in Stalingrad, would it be possible to maybe see where your fine Duma stores records? Don't want to go throwing money where it might get lost.
That's odd places you want to see, but I guess there's no harm in it.
The clerk says. She leads you back to the great lobby and toward a door you had not noticed before. It was an unremarkable wooden door, inconspicuous compared to the extravagance of everything else. If anything, you thought this might have been a storage room or a closet. She opens the door, revealing a winding set of stairs going downward into darkness.
Watch your step. Boss visitors never see this place, so we don't keep this quite as tidy.
The clerk says over her shoulder, you almost slip on the stone stairs immediately. Oh, this was going to be great, you could tell already. The three of you walk down the spiraling staircase for almost 10 minutes before finally reaching a well-lit room, scattered with all sorts of binders and notebooks. In the back of the room, a small vault door.
Well, this is it. I know it doesn't look much for our records and incredibly well kept all the way back for a founding.
You need to look around, but the clerk isn't going to just leave you alone. You need to get rid of her.
Please, tell us more.
You say as the clerk moves ahead of you and begins looking through a notebook.
Well, it all started back way before the Royal Sisters.
You look over to Mosina, trying to mouth to her to get the clerk to leave. She looks at you like you've got two heads. You nod toward the clerk, who's still rambling, and then back up the stairs. Mosina opens her mouth as if finally getting it, and winks at you.
Excuse me, ma'am, I hate to interrupt, but is there any way you can show me to the bathroom?
Mosina says, doing her best potty dance.
Oh, of course, right this way.
The clerk says, heading back up the stairs.
I will just wait here then.
As Mosina and the clerk get out of earshot, you get to work. Examining the door to the safe, you can see that there's a keyhole. Of course, you had no key. Suddenly, an idea. You look around the room, through every drawer, but you find nothing. Mosina and the clerk would be back soon. You had to get that door open. You take the nearest chair and start whacking the door with it, hoping to maybe bust it open. Soon you're holding a very broken chair. You take a paperclip and try your hand at picklocking. It doesn't work. Go figure. After exhausting your supply of chairs, your frustration reaches a boiling point. You punch the door as hard as you can.
Fuck.
Pain shoots up your arm, and you dance around holding your knuckles. As you shake your hand and try to ward off the pain, you hear a small creak. The door had opened. Typical commie technology. If you hit it enough, it'll work. You rush over and see a binder locked inside. Taking it, you flip through the pages. Department of Revenue and Finances.
This is it. Holy shit, this is it.
Notes of property and asset seizures line the pages with the destinations allocated to party officials before the trail went cold. These notes would certainly upset more than a few citizens who had had their property confiscated. You take the binder and rush up the stairs, slipping several times. You burst out into the lobby and Mosina is still desperately trying to distract the clerk. She spots you and the binder in hand.
Well, it was really great. Thank you so much for the tour. My associate and I will surely be back soon to discuss.
What is that you have in your hand, sir?
The clerk asks. You try to hide binder.
Oh, it's nothing. We really have to be going the next train to Canterlot leaves in 10 minutes and we have to be on it. Thank you again for the tour.
Sir, you may not leave with anything from this building.
You and Mosina start running for the door.
Stop! Guards!
The clerk shouts. You and Mosina burst out of the building and hightail it into the street.
There they are! Stop them!
You turn and see two guardsmen running down the steps after you. Guess they weren't all at the parade after all. The two of you rush into the nearest alleyway, tipping over cans and assorted junk to slow down your pursuers.
Which way do we go? I'm thinking. Left.
The two of you make your way through the winding, dark alleys trying to lose the guards. You can hear a bell tolling from the Duma building now and a voice magically amplified speaking through the air.
Alert, thieves fleeing from City Duma. All Red Watch are being called to arrest two suspects. Description are as follows. Oh god, they're waiting for us.
Mosina cried.
What did you think was gonna happen?
You find yourselves back out into the street. The bell tolls, keeping a steady pace, with onlookers staring from their windows in the street.
This way.
Mosina says, taking off in another direction.
Do you know where we're going? I think so.
She thinks so. Fucking perfect. You crisscross and zigzag your way through the city streets as the citizens stare and the guards chase you. Eventually, you find Oblast Street. Rounding a corner, you break the sight of the guards.
Quick, into the Red Square.
You both duck inside the inn as quickly as possible, slamming the door behind you and locking it. Mosina takes the binder from you and rushes up the stairs.
Where are you going?
She does not answer you, as her wings carry her faster than you've ever seen her move before. Moments later, you can hear the guards outside in the street.
They can't have gone far. Spread out. Search everywhere.
Fantastic. Now you'd be caught for sure. Mosina comes rushing down the stairs.
Anon, we can't stay here. If we do, then all this wars for nothing. Are you crazy? If we go out there, they will catch us. We need to let them catch us, Anon, but they can't do it here. What are you talking about? They will throw us in jail. Where's the records?
Mosina shook her head.
They're safe, Anon, but I need you to understand. We need to go now. If they find us here, they will search the building and get the records back. We need to be caught somewhere else to throw us
She was right. If they found you here, they'd take back that binder.
So much for my spotless criminal record, huh?
You say, trying to force a laugh. Mosina smiles at you.
Let's go, Anon. We are not done yet.
Poking your head out the door, you see a lone guardsman standing at the far corner of the street. His back was turned to you. Now or never.
Go.
You whisper as you and Mosina rush out the door and duck into the nearest alley. You sneak to the other end and spot more guards patrolling up and down the way. You give one more look to Mosina as if to ask her if this was really the only way. She only returned a half-hearted smile, which quickly faded. This was it. Stepping out into the street, a group of Red Watch sees you.
Freeze!
They call out, rushing over to you.
On the ground now!
You slowly comply, raising your hands above your head and getting to your knees. Mosina simply slumps to the ground.
I said on the ground!
A watchman says, striking you in the gut with his back hoof. You wheeze as the wind escapes you and fall to the ground, coughing. The guards begin to beat you, and all you can hear is Mosina's cries for them to stop as you fade to black. You awake. Everything hurts. You can hear the soft dripping of water. Sitting up, you find yourself in a very unfamiliar place. It's dark, really dark, and only a small bit of light pours through a small port to the outside of wherever you were, and the walls and floor around you all damp stone. You see a single torchlight on the other side of the bars. Jail. This had to be jail.
Anon?
You hear from the other side of what must be your cell. You look over and see that it is, in fact, from the cell next to you. Mosina has her face pressed up against the bars. Her glasses are gone, and her mane is a mess. You force yourself up through the pain and make your way over to the bars.
It's me. Are you okay? I'm fine. I thought they hurt you really bad.
Mosina said, putting her hoof through the bars to try and touch you. You take her hoof in hand and sit down next to her.
Where are we? The gulag. They took us here 3 days ago now, right after they caught us.
It had been 3 days?
What's going on? Are they just keeping us here? I don't know. I think so. Anon, I'm so sorry. I had no idea they would do that to you.
Tears ran down her face as she spoke.
I can see you here. They took my glasses. I thought you were dead.
You wipe away her tears and put your other arm through the cold bars and try to hug her.
I'm fine. Just a little roughed up. Don't worry. We are gonna get out of this.
You say as she continues to sob.
It's been 3 days. Nobody comes for us. They might not even know we are here. They will come. Someone got to come for us.
You say. Suddenly, you remember something.
What day is it? It is the 18th, I think. Why? Today is my birthday.
You say you had almost forgotten with all the excitement of the last week and a half.
I am 21 years old.
Mosina's sobbing halts for a moment, and she actually manages a small laugh. She turns, and after feeling around, manages to get both of her forelegs around your neck. After a few moments, she breaks away and gives you a genuine, if troubled, smile.
Happy birthday, Anon.
You sit in your dark cell for hours, in silence. Mosina's occasional sniffles are all that break the dead quiet of your prison. You don't know exactly how long has passed, but at this point, you almost wish that you hadn't woken up just yet. Ignorance is certainly bliss. You watch the ray of light coming through your one window as it slowly makes its way across the room. It was a slow day, apparently. How did Mosina do this for 3 days? Just when you felt you might make yourself mad over this, you heard a door at the end of the long hall that was your cell block open. The sound of hooves on cobblestone echoed throughout the cell block. There were 3 of them. 2 guards and a mare. The guards carried torches, giving a little more light in this dank, depressing place. As they came nearer, you could see their faces. Before you, in her dark, gloriously decorated uniform, was the premier of Stalingrad. She eyed you and Mosina in your cells, much in the same way a child watches the monkeys throw shit at each other in the zoo. A wicked smile crawled across her face.
So, you are the thieves that stole our records.
You don't answer. Neither of you do. You simply stare blankly at the premier.
Well, It's not necessary that you confess your crime. We know that it was you.
She scoffed.
How do you like your new home? I trust you've found our gulag comfortable enough.
Mosina is just staring at the floor. You spit.
Oh, but where are my manners? We've not made proper introductions yet. I'm Raven Song, the Premier of Stalingrad. What are your names?
What do you want?
You ask bluntly.
Ah, so the monkey can speak. I was beginning to wonder if my watchman had given you too hard of a beating.
What do you want?
The Premier frowned.
I want to know where you took those documents. They're the property of the Bolshevik Party, and you have created a major headache for us by removing them from their proper place.
If you came here to interrogate us, you are wasting your time.
My friend, I didn't come here to interrogate you. I come with an offer.
Oh boy, here we go. .png.
Ah, generous of you.
Exceptionally. Now, if you two tell us who has those documents, you will be immediately released and put on the next train out of the Stalingrad. No harm, no foul.
And if we don't?
Look around. You can see Black Dolphin has no shortage of cells. We can keep you here for as long as we like. The choice is yours.
You stop and think. Could she be telling the truth? Would these crooks really let you go if you turned in your friends? Could you live with yourself, knowing that you had betrayed all of the people of Stalingrad? Could Mosina last in this place? You look over to her, and she's still staring at the ground, not making a sound. If you turned in Oblast and Snowside, all of their work would be undone. You had to keep faith that they would come to get you out of this.
No, we are not telling you anything.
You'd best think twice before making that decision. We're getting closer to finding your traitorous friends on our own. There will be no second chance at this.
He said no deal.
Mosina said almost robotically. The Premier scowls and turns to leave.
So be it. I'll see that the two of you rot in here for the rest of your miserable lives.
As the door slams shut, you look back over to Mosina, still unmoving. You sit in silence for a few moments when she starts speaking again.
They are coming for us, right, Anon?
You scoot closer to her, reaching your hand through the bars and placing it on her hoof. She felt eerily cold.
Yeah, they are, Mosina. They are.
2 days pass. You'd begun counting the spiders that ran across the cell floor. For all you knew, it could be the same one passing over and over again. At least you would hope that that was the case. Otherwise, you had a hell of a lot of spiders in this cage. Mosina was becoming increasingly unresponsive, often talking to herself or sobbing. The only way to stop it was if you managed to get a hold of her when she wandered close enough to the bars for you to reach out and touch her. You were starting to worry. Today was no different. She'd only taken to a far corner of the cell now. You'd counted the last spider you'd ever wished to count just as you noticed her ears perk up.
They're coming. What?
She moved up to the bars and simply stared ahead.
Mosina, what are you...
Suddenly, the door on the far end of the cell block blows open. 6 figures rush in, creating a perimeter as they do.
Mosina, Anon.
No fucking way!
Hugo?
You call out in the darkness. The figure moves toward you, slowly revealed by the torchlight. Hugo! And behind him 5 hooded ponies.
Sometimes I hate being right all the time.
He sighed, producing a key and unlocking your cell door.
It's good to see you too, Hugo.
You say, stepping out into the hall.
Can you travel? Yeah, who are they?
You ask, pointing toward the ponies.
Our friends. You can introduce yourselves.
Hugo said as he fumbled with the keys to Mosina's cell. The ponies stepped forward, throwing back their hoods, revealing cat-like eyes and fanged smiles.
You must be the human Hugo told us about.
One of them said, stepping toward you.
I'm Captain Sterling, and this is my team, Springfield, Tua, Easy, and Cliff. Hi!
The rearmost pony called out, waving frantically.
We are here as a request of our associate to aid in the revolution.
Sterling said.
Revolution?
Outside of the gulag was a scene of chaos. Black smoke from 100 fires billowed up and above the city. The thunderous sound of hooves and shouting filled the air. The glow of flames lit up the night sky.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Sterling said, staring at you with her silver eyes.
The fires of freedom are truly a sight for sore eyes in this little piece of Equestria.
You stood there with your mouth agape. Mosina was seemingly unaffected.
Well, are we gonna stand here or are we gonna have some fun?
Springfield said cheerily.
Always with the Russian this one is like that she enjoys fighting peasants.
Tula chuckled to the one that must be Izzy in an oddly Slavic accent.
This typical sister. They do not share the dignity of the old country.
Oh God, they were both doing it.
Black talons, move out!
Sterling commanded as the bats rushed, flew toward the chaos.
So, where do you find this crew?
You nudge Hugo,
They go back.
he said.
Let's go, the colonel and oboist are waiting for us.
Walking through the city streets, piles of burning garbage line the alleyways. Angry citizens marched through the streets wielding farming tools and homemade weapons, chanting and beating lone members of the Red Watch. Hugo led you and Mosina through the scene with a steely determination, back to the Red Square. Inside, Mr. Oblast and the Colonel Snowsight were looking over maps of the city with all sorts of lines and markings meaning God knows what.
We got them.
Hugo announced, grabbing their attention.
Oh no, Mosina!
Mr. Oblast said excitedly, rushing over to meet you.
I'm so glad to see you both okay. We had worried that the premier would have you executed. Nah, nearly bored us to death, so.
He looked at Mosina.
Is she okay? She looks off. She spent the last few days in prison cell. She's pretty shaken up. She looks it. I hope you're both okay to get moving. We are about to put an end to this once for all.
Yes, the rebels are amassing on Commissar Street for one final push to the Duma building. This rebellion will be over before daybreak.
The Colonel said, stepping toward you.
Now, let us go pay a visit to the Premier.
You do not march alone as the citizens of Stalingrad fall in line with your group. Mr. Oblast explains that after they return to find the documents hidden under your mattress, they begin publishing the records and distributing them around the city. Quickly, citizens demanded answers, and the Duma began trying to crack down on the growing dissent. Massive protests sprang up, riots and strikes followed. Yesterday, the crackdown became violent, and so the resistance did as well. They were to march into the Duma and force the Premier and the Kolchevik party to abandon their positions and surrender. As you had reached Commissar Street, you saw that the ponies of Stalingrad were more than ready to do just that. Colonel Snowsight stood in front of the crowd, holding up a hoof to silence their chanting.
Ponies of Stalingrad, comrades, neighbors, friends, today is the dawning of new era for our great city. An era of freedom from oppression, freedom from tyranny, and fair treatment for all ponies of the North.
The crowd cheered as the colonel waited for them to quiet again.
Today, we show the Premier and her cronies that we will not be enslaved, and we will not let them control our destiny.
Turning to the Duma building, the colonel points her hoof forward.
Forward, comrades!
The crowd rushes forward, shaking the ground beneath them. What members of the Red Watch had been brave enough to watch from the steps abandoned their posts and fled into the great domed building. You struggled to keep your footing as the crowd rushed past you. Mosina seemed to be struggling as well. Suddenly, great fireballs began raining down from the roof of the Duma. Unicorns of the Red Watch were hurling them with magic in an attempt to scatter the rebels. Around you, they crashed into the ground with great force. They were close, but not close enough to harm you. You just kept pressing forward through the heat and the smoke. You stayed beside Mosina as she seemed to stumble along, even with her new glasses. You look at her. Something is clearly wrong.
Incoming!
You hear through the noise. Suddenly, you're both thrown from your feet. You stumble to the ground as fire rages around you. You lay there for a moment, forcing yourself to your knees as your ears ring. You look around and see wounded ponies on the ground and around you, crawling away or desperately struggling to their feet. Then you see Mosina on the ground, not moving.
Mosina!
You scream, struggling to your feet and taking heavy steps. Your vision blurs, as does your mind. You don't remember how, but you somehow manage to pick up Mosina and duck into a crater from one of the fireballs. You shake her, trying to get a response. It doesn't work.
Mosina, wake up!
Slowly, she opens her eyes.
Get with the pancakes. What? Mosina, what are you?
Suddenly, it comes back to you. Blood. Mosina hadn't fed in days, maybe a week. She told you what happened to bat ponies when they didn't feed. They lost their minds. Her eyes closed again, and she continued to ramble nonsensically. Looking around, you find a piece of broken glass in the ditch. You look at the glass and you look at her. You put the edge to your palm and drag it across. A deep red begins to flow from the cut. You hold Mosina's mouth open with your other hand and let the ruby red droplets fall into her mouth.
Please work.
You beg. She continues to lie motionless. You squeeze your wound over her mouth, ignoring the pain shooting through your arm. As more of the blood flows from your cut, she begins to cough.
Mosina, wake up, please!
Her eyes open and she looks up at you.
Anon? Shh, don't talk here.
You say, putting your hand in front of her mouth, holding her head up to reach it. At first, she resists, but she soon takes a lick of your wound, and then another, and another, ravenously. It hurts, but you know that this is what she needs. After a few minutes, she pulls away, exhaling deeply.
Feel better?
You say, smiling down at her in your arms. She doesn't respond, only wraps her hooves around you without a word. You sit there for a minute before taking her in your arms and carrying her out of the crater and back into the street. The crowd has already reached the Duma and have begun breaking through the door. They seem to be struggling when suddenly you see a lone flyer crash into the door at top speed.
Clip, I said to wait!
Sterling called out from above, Tula and Izzy laughing hysterically as Springfield face-offs.
Sorry!
The young recruit calls back. You carry Mosina up the steps just as they force their way inside. You hear the shouting. You hear the crashing and rummaging inside. And then, cheering. When the morning came, the fires had all been put out. And while the city had been damaged in the uprising, none of the damage was permanent. The rebels had captured nearly all of the members of the Bolshevik Party, huddled in their offices. They were paraded around to the street for the entertainment of the citizens, who had booed and threw garbage at them. The premier, chief among them, sat in her new carriage, a cage on wheels. All of the Red Watch had been forced into the cells of the Black Dolphin Gulag, replaced with volunteers of the citizenry. By popular demand, Colonel Snowsight would preside over the provisional government until elections could be held. Following a night of celebration, you, Mosina, and Hugo stood waiting for your train on at the terminal in the cool, snowy morning, Colonel Snowsight presiding to send you off.
My friends, I and the city of Stalingrad thank you for everything that you've done for us. Without you, all of this would have never been possible.
It's nothing.
You said.
It was not nothing. Thanks to the three of you, Stalingrad remains free city, and for that, we thank you. You are all welcome here in any time, and will be met with the praise worthy of heroes.
Mosina blushes.
Heroes?
Snowsight smiles, placing a hoof on Mosina's shoulder.
Among the greatest we've ever known.
The train pulls up behind you, and ponies begin filling out of it with construction materials arriving from Canterlot to help rebuild.
Well, I guess this is goodbye.
You say, holding out your hand. The colonel takes it and gives it a firm shake.
Hopefully not for too long. Where did you say you were going now?
Out west, to Apuza. We have still got a long trip ahead of us.
Mosina said.
Well, I wish you luck wherever it is that your travels take you.
Snowside said, bowing deeply. You return the gesture as Hugo takes out your bags into the train.
Let's go, we are holding up the train.
He grumbled. You and Mosina step out onto the train as well.
Wait!
Rushing through the terminal doors, Mr. Oblast crashes into the train door.
Mr. Obas?
Mosina asks, confused.
I'm coming with you.
He replied, shaking his head of the blow he had taken.
Why?
You asked.
I think after all that, a little vacation is in order.
He laughed, turning to the colonel.
Besides, the city is in perfectly capable hooves now.
Oh, Oblast, you're too kind. It was a great pleasure working with you.
She smiled.
The pleasure was all mine, ma'am.
He said, dragging his saddlebag onto the train.
Okay, well, the more the merrier.
Mosina said, still processing what was happening. The doors closed and the train began pulling away. The colonel waves as you slowly leave the terminal and pull away from the city. Soon you're cruising along the rails and the towering buildings and domes of Stalingrad are fading into the distance. After hours of riding, Hugo and Oblast have taken to exchanging stories of this and that. You sit in your compartment, thinking back on the last few days with Mosina by your side. She had not spoken to you much since the night of the uprising. She was just buried in her notes. You decide that enough was enough. Nudging her, she looks up at you.
Yes or no? Something up? You have been giving me a bit of cold shoulder since the other night.
Sighing, she puts away her notes and looks at the floor.
I told you I'm not proud of what we do. The bar drinking.
She nods.
I would never have asked you to do what you did for me.
She looks at your hand, your wound bandaged.
I had to, for you. I'm sorry, I just didn't want to say anything and...
You put your finger up to her mouth.
There is no need to be ashamed, not with me. If you ever need help, I'm happy to.
For the first time in days, you see that smile that can light up a room come to her face again. Expecting a hug, you brace yourself, but something else comes. She stands up and plants a peck on your cheek.
Thank you, Anon. You are the best.
You sit there stunned as she giggles and jumps off of her seat.
Come on, let's go park the bikes.
She says, walking off toward Hugo and Mr. Oblast's compartment. Rubbing your cheek, you fight to hide the dumb-looking smile on your face. You stand up, shaking your head as you chuckle.
Right behind you.